it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Ohayon, and welcome to your weekend, and welcome to the Sick Podcast. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Are you looking for the ultimate entertainment destination? Then Playground is your ticket to nonstop thrills. Experience heart-pumping gaming action and a world-class poker experience. Playground is the 2025 winner of the Fan Choice Best Poker Room at the Global Poker Awards. Indulge your taste buds at incredible restaurants, then let loose with live music and electrifying DJs. Enjoy unmatched customer service just minutes away from downtown Montreal, right across the Mercier Bridge. Playground. Why settle for ordinary when you can have the extraordinary? Visit playground.ca for details. We're also brought to you by Tibi beer. Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer perfect for those summer days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery and dépanneur stores around the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. And finally, we're brought to you by Betway. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. Okay, listen, things are going well for the Rocket. This is a pre-recorded episode, so as of right now at 1:10 p.m. on Friday, it is 2-1 in their series. They just trounced the Rochester Americans last night, 4-1. Still, lots of questions about the Habs in their offseason and what's going to be done. Let the speculation begin and basically continue all the way to the draft and probably till free agency. Let's tackle it all. Here he is, Mr. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how we doing?
I'm doing okay despite the freezing cold temperatures here in Montreal.
Yeah, I know. A Labita TB beer would still be good, but it's also perfect for those cold summer days like it is today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Brutal.
Yeah, it's the listen, we had a never-ending winter, and it's seemingly still sticking around. Stu, I was thinking a lot last night about trends that the Montreal Canadiens do in their offseason moves, and typically they re-sign their restricted free agents with 1 year left on their current contract. So that means it's possible we could see a Lane Hutson contract this summer. I was thinking a lot about it, and listen, the Canadiens have their supposed internal cap that's been breached by Patrik Laine, but for players in their core, do you think they're going to stick to that number, or with the cap going up pretty significantly over the next 3 years, could we see that number increase?
I think it's going to increase, and I think Lane Hutson is going to be the guy who's going to increase, and I think he might even go ahead of Patrik Laine, never mind Nick Suzuki. I think it's just the way the business goes, right? You sign these long-term contracts, you know that the salary cap, or you figure it's going to rise. It's rising quite dramatically over the next 3 seasons. Actually, business has been good in the NHL. So I think Lane Hutson is the guy that's going to surpass, as I said, Nick Suzuki and possibly even Patrik Laine. Kane's going to want to lock him up to a long-term deal. He was asked about it when the Canes players cleared out their lockers, and he said he'd definitely be interested in speaking. And, you know, he likes playing in Montreal. And for the Canadian standpoint, you hope that It's the same thing as what they did with Juraj Slafkovsky and Cole Caulfield. They were able to lock them up long term and keep them here. And those contracts that Suzuki signed and Caulfield signed moving forward could look like really good bargains as the salary cap goes up. But it's just the business. Whoever, you sign, you're the highest paid player, and then a couple of years from now, somebody else is going to get more than you. So you take the security. I don't know how much your life really changes if you're making $7.8 million or $10 million. I think you probably can still basically do whatever you want, whenever you want. But a lot of the stuff with sports is obviously ego, and that guys want to be the highest paid in their thing. But I don't think Nick Suzuki or Cole Caulfield will be complaining if Lane Hutson makes more money than they do, which I think he will.
So I agree. I think you will too. But what do you suppose that number might look like? Because I was thinking about it, and the obvious comparable to Lane Hutson's skill set would be Quinn Hughes, elite offensive defenseman, and he's currently signed to a $7.8 million per year deal over 6 years. I don't know when he signed that, but that's what he's signed to. So to me, that number probably falls between anywhere between 8 and 10.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know at this stage if Lane Hutson's a $10 million a year hockey player at this stage in his career after one season and one brief playoff. Does he want to maybe sign a bridge deal? I'm sure the Canadiens would maybe. I'm sure Ken Hughes would like to keep him under what Nick Suzuki's making, right? But maybe he gives him a little bit more. Maybe he offers $8 million to keep him here. And again, it sort of depends on Lane Hutson, right? It's those long-term deals. The Canadiens are obviously the only team that can offer him 8 years. And when you're a young player, and especially when you're a smaller young player, you have to back in your mind, you got to worry about injuries. When Cole Caulfield signed his contract, he was coming off that shoulder surgery, and we weren't sure health-wise how he was going to recover from that. And maybe in the back of his mind, he was wondering also. He's come back and played all 82 games the last 2 seasons, shown that he can be durable through an NHL season. Lane Hutson played every game this season, monster minutes and everything else. But those long-term contracts, especially, like this isn't the last contract Lane Hutson's going to get, even if he signs for 8 years. He'll be 30, 31 in the next one. So, I mean, if I was his father, I'd be, the Canes are offering 8 years at $8 million. I'd jump on it. But, things work differently in hockey, and agents have say and whatnot. But I'd be surprised if the Canadiens aren't able to lock up Lane Hutson. I think, a lot of teams, guys always say, we love playing here. It's a great group of guys. This team really means it. These guys really, really do like each other, and they have fun together, and it's a really good group. And I think that it led to that. That's why some of these guys have re-signed. That's why Jake Evans signed for less money than he might have been able to get at free agency, and why Yoel Armia said he wants to stay here and possibly sign for less money if the Canes are able to keep him. It's a fun play. It's a good room to play. It's a good coach. They like the system that Marty St. Louis plays. They like the way Marty St. Louis treats the guys. And they're happy here. So, and that's one of the things that Kent Hughes said he wanted to do was make Montreal a place where players wanted to come to and or stay when they were here. And Juraj Slafkovsky, happy to stay. Cole Caulfield, happy to stay. One European guy, one American guy. So, again, I'd be surprised if Lane Hutson, if they're not able to lock him up to a long-term deal.
Yeah, me too. And the reason why this is, a significant part of our conversation today is because we're obviously going to talk about potential moves. We're going to continue to talk about potential moves till the draft or free agency, or both, until they both hit. And we both know that on the Canadian shopping list, they probably have a right-handed defenseman and a second-line center. Yeah. And those two things don't come cheap. So I'm thinking, I would be surprised if both came from free agency. But I would also be surprised if both came through trade. They have the assets to do it, but it's just the way it works. You're going to strike. They could. I don't think they need a top end right-handed defenseman for right now, but that second line center, this could be the offseason to strike. And we're going to be hearing this name. Canadiens fans are going to be hearing this name. Basically, until something happens with the Islanders, which. Matthew Darche is going to be their new general manager. But a lot of new general managers, what they love to do, their first order of business is shed the money that they can. And some money that could be shed is that contract of Bo Horvat. Yeah. And I just think more and more as I think about it, he's not my guy, but he might be the guy for the Montreal Canadiens should, there be a potential deal there.
Yeah, the Canadiens are in a position that teams that are looking to rebuild, like the Islanders probably are now with Matthew Darche. I'm so happy for Matthew Darche getting that job. Great guy, smart hockey guy, McGill grad, never drafted, played for the Canadiens, and he's learned the business under Julien Brisebois in Tampa there for a long time. He's really ready to make this next step. But the Canadiens have what teams like that want, and what the Canadiens wanted when they started the rebuild, which is young prospects and draft picks. Right, for teams shedding salary. So the Canadiens are a team that has a lot to offer for teams that are looking to shed salary for a big name guy like that to fill a hole that the Canadiens need to fill. And as I said, you mentioned Ken Hughes has lots of ammunition, whether it's free agency, they're going to have some cap space, or whether it's through trades, they're going to have assets that I think other teams would be interested in.
Yeah, it's just really the possibilities are going to be endless for the Canadiens this offseason. Again, I think that they know that if they're heading into next season with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook, safely playing 82 games, assuming health, playing 82 games, and they are on the third line, they are in a very, very good spot. And I think that's the position they want to be heading into the season with offensively.
If Kirby Dach can come back from second major knee injury, I think it's become pretty clear that he's going to be a winger, not a center moving forward. It's surprising a guy that big struggles as bad as he does in the faceoff circle, for one thing. But yeah, if that's your third line with whoever they have at the center position there, that's not too bad, right? That's all right. And with Kirby Dach, this is like Ken Hughes spoke about it at his final news conference. Like this is it for it's the last year of his contract, right? He's got to show that he can stay healthy and that he can be an effective player consistently in the NHL. And it might be easier for him if they tell him you're going to be a winger moving forward. That's the position we see you in, and you're going to go from there. But he's got a lot of pressure on him this offseason. Jeff Gorton said he's going to have to really bear down this offseason and make sure he comes to training camp next season in great shape, because nothing's going to be handed to him this year. Last season stuff was handed to him, right? And we had the excuse of the injury, but I don't know if a second year, even though it is a second major knee injury, I don't think that excuse is going to play or be allowed like it was last season, and especially since the goal will be to do more than just be in the mix this coming season.
Yeah, and that's the whole deal of why this offseason is just so significant for the Montreal Canadiens, because it's possible that they don't make the playoffs next year. There were a lot of teams in the mix. I mean, Columbus, it came down to the last game of the season. The Canadiens needed to win the last game of the season. Columbus ended up winning their last game of the season. The Canadiens lose one more game, or even lose a game in overtime, and bang, you're out of the playoffs. And this never happened. The excitement around the city never happened. So it's quite well within the realm of possibility that the Canadiens will miss the playoffs next year, but they need to be right there. I mean, the run that they went on for them to get into that position, they don't necessarily have to do that again next year, but considering, they also can't lose and go on those stretches of games that they did lose last year, because that's what necessitated such an incredible run.
Yeah, that's the thing, is they got to be more consistent. You can't have those long losing streaks that they had this season. As part of a rebuilding team, this season the goal is to be in the mix, and this season was about learning how to win, right? The previous two seasons of the rebuild, it was about learning to play together, learn Marty's systems, learn what he expects from you, learn what you can do, what you can't do. This season about learning how to win, and they did learn how to win. I mean, they had to win some big games down the stretch just to get in, and they competed hard in all the games against Washington, even though that series didn't last very long. They were in every game. So they learned a lot of real valuable lessons this season, and management learned who are the guys that are going to show up in the playoffs, right? Who are the guys who are going to be physical in the playoffs? Juraj Slafkovsky has to be more physical next season, right from the start of the season going into the playoffs. They spoke about that at the final news conference. And, Maple Leafs are the perfect example of, Marc Bergevin's old line. Some guys get you to the playoffs and some guys get you through the playoffs. And it was sort of funny watching the Leafs final news conference. And when Coach Berube was walking through their practice facility, and they have the big sign up on the wall, it says, "No grit, no grind, no greatness." And the Leafs didn't have any of those three things. They had lots of talent, right?
Yep.
They had none of those three things in the playoffs, and that's why they're out. And that's why, they were at the final news conference with Hughes and Gorton, they were saying compete level is like almost at the top, even more important than size. It's the compete level. And you look at a Brad Marchand, right? Not the biggest guy out there, competes like crazy. The Brendan Gallagher's of the world compete like crazy. Cole Caulfield has become that competitor. He's become a 200-foot competitive hockey player. He really improved in that this season. So that's something that, and you watch the Florida Panthers, they're a perfect example of it. They play the ultimate team game, right? The Leafs and now the Hurricanes, they have no space. You get the puck, there's a guy on you immediately. And he's being physical on you too. Every single player. It doesn't matter what line they put out there. It doesn't matter which of the 6 defensemen they put out there. They all play the same way. Barkov, their best player, plays the same way. Physical, hard to play against. And those are the guys you need in the playoffs, and that's how you win. The Leafs didn't have enough of them, and the Canadiens are well aware that they need those guys moving forward. They have some already. You mentioned the Laval Rocket. Florian Xhekaj scores a great goal last night. I think I mentioned one of the previous podcasts we did. I went to a game earlier this season, near the end of the season. He was by far the best player on the ice for either team, just standing out. And that's the kind of guy, those are the guys you need in the playoffs, the guys who can play, the guys who can compete, the guys who can physical, and they can score when they get a chance.
Well, not to get too crazy, because Florian Xhekaj is still very young, and there's still a lot of room for growth and development. But we saw Exhibit A on the Washington Capitals, exactly what you need. And fans hate them when they're on the other team. They love them when they're on your own, and you need a Tom Wilson, because Tom Wilson, just like Josh Anderson against Tampa Bay when he was with Columbus, players like that can single-handedly change a series on a dime. And that's the type of player that Florian Xhekaj could be. That's the type of player the Canadiens need. You need, just because now Florian Xhekaj is a bit of a stretch because he's 6'4", but I heard this interesting take on the French radio station that Tony works on, and it's that you don't necessarily need, just like Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes emphasized, you don't necessarily need size, but you need players to play big. And because the Canadiens have size. I mean, not a lot of it, but they do have. But what good is, they call, with all due respect, he had a pretty good season and he had a very good playoff. But Yoel Armia, how he plays the gentle giant, he's the gentle giant. Patrick Laine is 6'5". The guy doesn't hit anything. They have these big bodies, but they don't play big.
And Slafkovsky, unlike those other two guys, is still a young guy learning the game, right? This first the playoffs, so you can see him change that. I mean, I don't think Yoel Armia at this stage in his career is going to change that, and I don't think Patrick Laine at this stage of his career is going to change that. But Florian Xhekaj is a big guy who plays big.
Yes,
and I think they're going to give him, if he continues to play the way he's playing in these playoffs and the way he played in the season, they're going to give him a chance, I think, to make a legitimate chance to make their team next season. He can play center, he can play wing. And Ken Hughes spoke about this at the season-ending news conference. They have to be careful, like when you're bringing guys in from outside through trades or whatever, the guys in Laval are going, what about me now? I just lost the spot that maybe I had. And that's something that the Canadiens are aware of, that they still have to keep the guys in Laval hungry and realizing that there is an opportunity to make that next step for their top players. That's why I think Xhekaj will be given every opportunity to try and make this team next season when the Canadiens come into training camp. And I was a fourth line, talk about like a replacement for Michael Pezzetta. Similar type of game. Will fight if he has to. Better offensive skills. Better. So that'd be sort of an upgrade at that position if he was the guy to come in there.
Yeah, and the thing, it's funny because I was at the game on Wednesday, and the thing that I noticed just about AHL hockey in general is that this might be a playoff thing, but there were very few interference calls because there's a lot of late hitting in that game, just because it's a slower game. And when the puck moves, everyone's going to finish their check no matter what. And there were a couple hits that this may be a learning curve for a player like Florian Xhekaj when the game is just so much faster and split seconds are so important in the NHL that we might see him, if he does make the team or even in preseason, struggle a little bit with that, just because you're adjusting again from a junior league to now the AHL, and now it would be the AHL to the NHL level speed.
Yeah, and the thing with Florian, he's a tough kid, right? His big brother ever beat the crap out of him every day when they were kids. He talked about that and toughened them up. But and they also know, like, these guys listen to like the GMs end of season news conferences and that, so they know that Canadiens are looking to see who can play in the playoffs and who in the AHL playoffs. They know that Kent Hughes and these guys are watching them closely. This is their opportunity. It's like it's a pre-training camp for them, right? To show that they can compete when the playing gets tougher. And you're right. I mean, the AHL, the NHL, the referees put the whistles away. A lot of late stuff goes on. We saw that in the Florida game last night. Lots of late hits, lots of late cross checks, nothing called. And the Panthers are great at that, right? They love Matthew Tkachuk feeds off that. Brad Marchand feeds off that. They love that.
Sam Bennett does as
Sam
well.
Bennett. That's what the playoffs are, and it's not going to change. It's not like one year the NHL referees are all going to start calling these late hits or these punches to the head in the scrum or stuff like that. It just doesn't happen. And you need guys that can play that style of game. And I think Florian Xhekaj has already shown that he's a guy who can play that style of game. His brother's shown that also. It'd be just cool to see the two Xhekaj brothers in the Habs lineup. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny. They would be the first pair of brothers to play since the Kostitsyn brothers, and
they live together downtown too.
And they would be probably exponentially more loved by the fan base than the Kostitsyn brothers were. But it would be very cool. And just a quick note on Florida, because to compare them to the Canadiens, we talk about how they play and and that just how they play that team game. I forget which podcast had this, but there was a story that basically I think it was Nate Schmidt. He made a bad play, soft dump. He's one of the newer Florida Panthers. Bad play, soft dump into the zone, and it ended up causing a turnover. I don't know if it led to a goal, and I don't know which game this was, but this is a story that was either told on 32 Thoughts or Chicklets. And Barkov pulled him aside on the bench and said, "Hey, in Florida, we don't do that shit here. We don't do that. We don't play like that. Yep. You play but you could see that this is a part of the Florida Panthers because it's a copycat league. You try to copy everything of the past champion. That's something that the Canadiens are pinpointing from the Florida Panthers that they need to implement in their game, playing a team game, but also an incredible team culture, which they've been building upon, brick by brick for the past 3 years.
Well, the Canes have talked about Gordon and Hughes, like how important culture is. It's like right at the top of the list. And some people are like, it doesn't matter. It does matter, especially in hockey. And guys got to buy in. And the way guys buy in is when they respect and like their coach. And Paul Maurice and Marty St. Louis have a lot in common, right? They're great communicators. They let the players know where they stand. They're honest with them. They're straightforward with them. And they're demanding. And Marty St. Louis' demands have increased, right? Each year since he's taken over the rebuild. And and you don't want to let the other guys in the room down either when you build that good culture. And that's a good captain, right? I mean, this isn't how we play. We finish our checks. We don't do drive-bys or skate-bys. We stop in front of the net. We finish checks. Every chance we have a chance to finish a check, we finish a check. We make hard dump. It's just all those little things. And that's the stuff that Marty St. Louis has been working on since this rebuild started. And we started to see it come into place this season when the Canadiens are on their game. When they have their A game, they're hard to beat. And Marty St. Louis has spoken this season how they have to learn now how to win with their B game also, because you're not going to be at 100% every game. And that's what you're talking about with Barkov saying the player. Maybe the guy's having a bit of an off night, makes that soft dump in. Doesn't matter if you're having an off night. That's okay. Everybody has an off night. You still play hard. You still play Panthers hockey, or in the Marty St. Louis case, Canadiens hockey. And when the Canadiens they compete hard. They compete hard, and we spoke about this. I think the only game they gave up on this year was that blowout against Pittsburgh. They compete hard night after night, shift after shift. They never give up, and the Florida Panthers like that too. The Florida Panthers have better talent and they're more advanced, but that's the type of team that. And you talk about copycat league, but I mean, you go back to the Broad Street Bullies. I'm old enough to remember them, and when it was just goon hockey and the Canadiens beat them in that final. That sort of changed things. That you still need, skill can beat that. But you still need a mix of it in the NHL today. You can, and the Leafs are a perfect example. Look at all the skill the Leafs have, and they have no grit, no grind, no greatness. And those are the three things. If you don't have that, you're not going to win the Stanley Cup. And you look at the teams that are left; they all have that, right?
Well, and even further than that, you could take a look at it. It got a little less notoriety because there are two Western Conference teams. One of them was in the Pacific Zone. Is that you look at the series between Vegas and Minnesota? Minnesota had all the talent in the world. Really, they really did, and they played a hard series. They had Vegas on the ropes, but unfortunately for Minnesota, what happened to the Canadiens against the Capitals happened to them, which is they just faced the team that has been there before. They're bigger, they're stronger, and they just muscled them around and they pushed them around, and that's what happened. So all that to say, when you hear media members, spit out takes of the Canadiens, I would love to have Marco Rossi. I'm a part of that. I would love Marco Rossi to be on the Canadiens. Now, everyone's going to say, yeah, but he's 5'10" or 5'9". Depends on who you ask. Okay, he's 5'10" or 5'9". He's 200 pounds. Yeah, that's a big guy. That is a big guy, and he plays big. Yeah. And it's the same thing with Mason McTavish. Mason McTavish is kind of on the cusp of being big size because he's 6'3", and he's 215 pounds. Yeah. That is big. That is hard.
Nick Suzuki's not tall, but he's big.
Exactly. If you could have two Nick Suzukis, I don't think anyone would complain about that on your team. Especially with the way they're constructed. And just the way modern NHL is played. You can no longer have a top six and a bottom six. All four lines have to be able to pitch in.
The Florida Panthers, after the game against the Leafs, Marchand was asked, did you pack enough clothes for the trip to Carolina? He went, yeah, of course. I think, what a road trip. You go to Toronto, you smoke the Leafs on home ice to eliminate them. And Paul Maurice, how sweet was that for him, a former coach of the Leafs, right? Yeah. Then you get on the plane, you go to Carolina, and you win both games in Carolina.
Yeah.
Before going back home. Like this team, if they weren't already on a high, they're flying high right now. And I can't remember which player was interviewed after the game. It was last night, and they were talking about the culture and the unity in the team. And he was saying the night before, all 25 guys that are with the team were all together at the hotel in the team's hospitality lounge, all together. Just hanging out, and there wasn't like 5 guys going for dinner here and 4 guys going for dinner there and some guys staying in the room. The whole team was there together in the hospitality room, and that's a team. And I could see the Canadiens doing that. Like I would imagine when the Canadiens were on the road this season, there was times they're all together in the room the teams have set up at the hotel. And the Florida Panthers, I don't know if the Toronto Maple Leafs were doing that.
The Toronto Maple Leafs are it's very funny. Just I saw this last night, that for all the flack they get, I think does it still stand that Carolina hasn't won a conference final game since the year they won the cup?
Incredible. It's 14 in a row conference.
You want to talk snake bitten? Wow.
14 in a row conference final loss. That's quite remarkable. Really. Yeah.
But you know what? I will say
possibly swept for the 4th straight time in the conference final.
That would be just unbelievable. Yeah. I did say at the beginning of the Florida-Toronto series, whoever makes it out of that series is just going to trounce either Washington or Carolina. Mm-hmm. It's just I find Carolina to be very one-dimensional. They play they're hard to beat. Don't get me wrong. They're a very good team. There's a reason why they are where they are. But if they don't get a lead, they kind of don't know what to do. So if they're not playing with a lead. So that's why I had a feeling that this series, not in the fact, I didn't think Florida was going to just absolutely annihilate them in front of their own fans 2 games in a row. But I had a feeling that it would be this type of series where, Florida or Toronto, but now obviously in reality is Florida, it would have little to no trouble with their opponent.
Yeah, and if Florida can sweep this series, you're going to win 5 games, and the others they're going to be rested going into the final. They're going to be hard to beat, especially when Bobrovsky's on his game in net. They're just a really good hockey team, well coached. You watch them, as you say, there's their system. The players all play their system. I don't think Maurice has to say much behind the bench now. He's got them so tuned into what they want to play. He's just stands back there and watches them do their thing, and adds a little thing here and there if he has to. And as you mentioned, the leaders speak up if the players aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that's something that doesn't just come overnight. And it also makes it remarkable. We're talking about the Leafs, like how long that group's been together, and they were never able to develop that. They were with the core 4. They were never able to develop that. We play for each other. That's unacceptable. You had Austin Matthews saying, we had too many passengers on the team, without saying, including me. This is your team captain. You got Mitch Marner freaking out like a 12-year-old, screaming at his teammates on the bench when he's doing nothing. It's a dysfunctional team, and they seem to finally realize that with Brendan Shanahan now gone. And Scott Pelley, I know Scott Pelley held a news conference earlier today, and it's funny too because like after these series, it's almost like other teams feel sorry for the Leafs. This year it was the Panthers saying, "Oh, there's so much pressure here," and the year before in the handshake line, the Tampa, "We respect you guys," or something like that. And Pelley in his news conference today had the great line: "Pressure is a privilege. It's a privilege to play in Toronto. It's a privilege to play in Montreal. It's a privilege to play for the New York Yankees. It's a privilege to play for all these teams where it matters. Yes, there's pressure. Yes, it can be tough. But if you have the character in you that you're a winner and you want to win in those places, right? The New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup one year, and their parade was in the parking lot in the swamp in New Jersey. It wasn't, you win a Stanley Cup in Montreal or New York or any of these places. There's rewards that come with it. And it's so true that, and Max Pacioretty spoke about that after the Leafs were eliminated too. It's basically saying the same thing that, it's a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. And Max also mentioned how he's realized that more later in his career than earlier in the career. But early in Montreal, it's tough, right? You're playing this city and you're a young guy and the team's not playing well and you hear it. And Max Pacioretty was one of those guys who listened to everything that was said and written about him and let it affect him and let him upset him. And he's learned moving on. And, he was sort of one of the leaders on the Leafs this year, playing a physical style of game. And that's something he learned in Montreal. So, you hear these, the pressure's too hard, the pressure's this, the pressure's that. If you're a guy who wants to go play somewhere where it doesn't matter, okay. But I think that says a lot about your character and how that's more important to you than being somewhere where it matters and where you have to perform every night. And if you don't, you're going to hear about it.
Just a note about Mitch Marner talking about all that. I think a lot of it's hard not to like Mitch Marner as a player. He's a 100-point player, those don't come around too often. I will say this, I'll never forget this. And I've told this story a couple times in the past week since the Leafs had gotten eliminated. I'll never forget when it was the 2000-2001 season, heading into that year, 2020-2021 season. And heading into that year, Taylor Hall signed a 1-year contract with the Buffalo Sabres. And heading into the trade deadline, he was the big fish on the market, obviously. Mm-hmm. And there was an episode of Habs Lunch. It was me, it was Chris Nyland, Sean Campbell, and Tony. We were, I may not even have spoken, but I remember being there. And Chris Nyland said this: Taylor Hall is a wide receiver. Now, what does that mean? You take a look at some NFL teams. Yep. What do you need? You need a win in the trenches, and you need a good quarterback. And you need, you could have a good running game in Derrick Henry or, whoever. It doesn't matter. A wide receiver is an additive because they will make some good plays. They might even win you some games. But when the chips are down and you need some, and you need to, put the game in someone's hands, you're going to put it in the quarterback's hands. And Taylor Hall, now the modern day Taylor Hall is going to be Mitch Marner. Whatever team will sign Mitch Marner, I promise you this, he will not. He's going to get the money. Don't worry. He'll get his money. Mm-hmm. But he will not be a part of the core of that team. It will not be a team built around Mitch Marner, which is what the Leafs did. He's going to be an additive. The perfect spots, if the cap didn't exist, I don't even know if they could make it happen, would be a Carolina, a Florida. Those are the type of teams where he doesn't have to be the guy like he was one of the 4 guys in Toronto. And that's why I think that's what I think about Mitch Marner when it comes to pressure. I think he could play in a pressure market, no problem. Mm-hmm. He just can't be the guy in a pressure market. Yeah,
in Toronto, it's sort of weird because it's sort of like, who was the guy? Was it right? Was it Marner? Was it Matthews? Was it it's the 4 guys? Yeah. Nylander, like that, and I think that was part of the problem is that they were like, well, I'm the guy. No, I'm the guy. No, I'm the guy. No, mm-hmm. There was no who was really the guy, right? And what did I say about Marner? I mean, he competes, and he didn't have a great playoff, but in the regular season he competes. And I remember at the Four Nations interviewing him in the locker room, he's just wearing his T-shirt and his long johns. He's a skinny little guy. There's no meat on him. And to watch what he's able to accomplish in the NHL as a little guy like that is really impressive. And you don't do that if you don't have some kind of grit in you. But it's sort of, I think, and we were talking before we came on the air doing the show, and you were saying, Marner screaming at the bench. Well, who else was going to do it?
Yeah.
And it was a good point because, Austin Matthews isn't doing it. He's a captain. Okay, you're not going to do it. Somebody's got to scream, even if I'm not doing that well. So with Mitch Marner, like wherever he goes, he's going to make that team better. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's an elite level hockey player. But, after, 9 years or whatever these guys have all been together, it's like, okay, enough. These four guys, maybe individually, if they go elsewhere, they might do okay. But as a group of four and in that Toronto market and, it becomes like it's more than just hockey. It's like their fashion and it's this and it's that and it's endorsements. If he goes somewhere where it's just like, okay, you're one of the guys, you're going to play. Like he's, he had 100 points. He's a 100-point hockey player in the NHL. There's not a lot of guys like that. But it's time for Toronto just to shake things up. You were talking earlier about the possibility of the Habs maybe missing the playoffs next year, which is very possible. Can you imagine if the Leafs do a rebuild and then they miss the playoffs next year?
That would be just unbelievable after, what seemed like for them the never-ending rebuild. Then what changed the course of their franchise was that they got first overall and got an Austin Matthews, and they already had Mitch Marner in their system. Yeah. If they went through that and then 9 years of just consistent failure into another rebuild.
And then they added John Tavares, right? And Tavares wants to stay, whether he stays or not.
He wants to stay. Yeah. Money talks. And wouldn't it be interesting? I thought about this. Canadiens are looking for a second-line center. If they just go over to Tavares, he makes it to free agency, and they say, "Hey, John, we'll give you a 4-year contract, $8 million a year. You'll be our second-line center. You get 2 years minimum with Ivan Demidov flanking you." I don't know. That could be.
I think we mentioned in a previous podcast also, one of the reasons or a big reason why Tavares wants to stay in Toronto is because his family and extended family is all from the Toronto area. So it's his wife's family and extended family, and they have 3 young kids. So they want to be around the extended family, and Montreal's not that far from Toronto, right? If you want to still sort of stay close to family. So that's he could fit in here. He'd be, he didn't have a great playoff either. He had a great regular season, but he's a character guy, he would fit into this locker room and be another veteran for Nick Suzuki to lean on, right? Another guy to and that second line center, right? I mean, he can still play this season. You're not going to.
He had one of the best seasons of his career.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That would be an interesting thing to see.
Yeah. So the reason why I even bring that up is because John Tavares would be the perfect second line center, and I'm not going to start pumping the rumors and and making the case, because I do think he might stay in Toronto. But if he was, I think it would be a shoo-in for him to stay in Toronto if he still had the C on his sweater, but he doesn't. And you had to take a step back in that room, and it's the same room. It's kind of weird. You're not in the same role. Maybe that has something to play into it, but that's why I could see him leaving.
I think one of the biggest mistakes the Leafs made was giving Austin Matthews a C. I mean, I'm not around. He just doesn't strike me as a leader guy, right? I mean, the comment after the game, we had too many passengers, including me, that would have been the right thing to say.
Well,
right?
That's it, because I think it was.
And you mentioned too about Marner yelling at his teammates. He's looking around. He's not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to try and wake these guys up. I guess I better do it. If you're Tavares, you can't do it because they took the C off of you, right? You're not going to overstep the guy who has the C, and maybe he's looking at him like, are you going to do something? Mm-hmm. So that's, and for Tavares, the way he I thought that was just classless, the way the Leafs did it, especially with 1 year left on his contract, to just hand the captaincy to Austin Matthews. I just don't, I didn't understand it at the time, and I really don't understand it after the playoffs. And it just shows you that, when the Canadiens made Nick Suzuki the youngest captain in team history, could you imagine Nick Suzuki saying after a playoff series, "Oh, we had too many passengers"?
Never.
Not including himself, if he was going to say that. I couldn't imagine him saying that in the first place, throwing his teammates under a bus like that. But to say it, and if he was to say that, I think Nick Suzuki would say, "We had too many passengers tonight, including me."
Well, I think it was, on SportsCenter, they showed a clip when after the elimination of the Leafs, because Jeff O'Neill was just livid on the panel about it.
Yeah.
And he was livid at no one more than Austin Matthews for his comments after the game. And they juxtaposed it with, I think it was Alex Pietrangelo after Vegas got eliminated from the playoffs. It may not have been him, but he's I'm pretty sure he's the captain of that team. So it may have been him. And he goes, yeah, we just couldn't score. We get paid a lot of money to score goals. And myself, I couldn't pitch in.
Yep.
And that was his answer. That's what you have to do.
Your captain needs to take ownership in this. And, when you're a leader in any sport or any business, I remember when I was sports editor at the Gazette, one of my bosses telling me when you have that title, everything's your fault, even if it's not. When you're a leader of a business, or you're a leader of a company, or you're a leader of a hockey team, you take responsibility, even if it's not your fault. And it reminds me of David Savard. We talked about this in a previous one when he was partnered with Caden Gooley or any of the other young defensemen. Every time they would make a mistake, you'd say, it's my fault. I should have covered you up. That's leadership. That's leadership, is taking blame, at least part of the blame, even when it's not your fault. That's what leaders do. And Austin Matthews showed that he's not capable of doing that.
So all that to say, John Tavares, you could add his name into the hat of potential. I mean, who knows? Because
he would fit the culture. He would fit the culture of Montreal. And he's used to playing in the bright lights in the big city, and it's how much he was said that he still wants to be paid what he's worth. He's probably willing to take a little bit of a hometown discount to stay in Toronto, but not a ton. Like, he's not going to make $11 million again, but is he going to accept 7, 6? Like, what's this?
Yeah. What does playing here mean to you?
Staying close enough to your family mean to you too, because it's Toronto and Montreal are far away.
And if you're making whatever your next contract is going to be, or you're just going off your savings of your last contract, you don't mind paying $500 for the flight from Toronto to Montreal.
Yeah, exactly.
That scenario is probably just as unlikely as everyone's throwing around Sidney Crosby's name now, but these are things that are within the realm of possibility. That's the only reason why we're talking about it.
Could you imagine, if the Canadiens, I mean, I don't see it happening. Could you imagine if Sidney Crosby actually came to Montreal?
This city I think it would burn to the ground from excitement. Truly. I truly think, I remember, Stu, when the Montreal Impact, when they were still the Impact.
DJ Drogba.
That's right. That was a massive deal. A huge deal. Even people who didn't watch soccer
understood. Remember the scene at the airport when he arrived. It was like the Beatles had showed up.
Imagine what it would be. It would be like the Beatles and Queen and Metallica all in one were showing up at the airport at the same time.
Yeah.
That would be the most significant superstar to play in this city since Guy Lafleur. It really would. It really would.
This summer fun, right? It's not only rebuilding now. Like, there's a lot of things that could happen this summer with the Canadiens. It's exciting.
Exactly. Could Sidney Crosby come and be he's obviously not around for very long if he is here because of his age, but could, like people say, Alexander Carrier is a stopgap for the next guy. Wouldn't that be a great stopgap for the next guy? Just one of the best players to ever play the game.
You talk about the party in Montreal or the celebration if he was to come. Maybe they'd burn the arena down in Pittsburgh if
oh my God, yeah.
But you never know. Wayne Gretzky got traded, as I always say, so anybody can get traded.
That's it. So we'll see what happens. Another week to come of speculation. Hopefully some more exciting news drops, and we'll have an update for you next week on what's going on in the NHL playoffs. But Stu, thank you very much for joining me, and enjoy this horrible weather.
All right. Have a good weekend.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. For producer Shane, thank you very much. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Tibi, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.